Hi, welcome to my channel. So this week I decided I should talk to you about all my work experiences because I thought it'd be interesting to just see the progression that I've been going through with all my jobs and things that I've done. So I started working when I was either 14 or 15. I needed my parents' permission to work. I had to go to my guidance counselor at the time, and they have this form, and then they're saying like, yes, we know, it's okay, and they're not going to be overworked, things like that. So then I turned in that form and I started working at my community center. I actually attended the community center ever since I was very young. My parents signed me up for the community center because over the summer, I think they kind of just don't want us at home watching TV all the time. I stopped going to the community center around 4th grade. My mom was really concerned for me at the time since I was enrolled in advanced work class and the workload was just so much. Like I would be staying up until 2 a.m. as a 4th grader doing homework. Yeah, that's not normal. So my mom decided, you know what, like screw it, you're just doing homework all the time. I don't need someone to be watching over you to be doing homework. So I stopped going to the community center for a while. Around 9th grade, I think they were looking for people to work there, and I was like, hey, I can work there. So after school, I would pick up the little kids with someone, obviously. Yeah, I don't think I would allow some like 14, 15-year-old to pick up like 100 little kids. Okay, there weren't like hundreds, but it was still quite a bit. I think there were maybe 50 kids in the program. And so after school, we like give them snacks and then we'll help them with their homework. And once they're done with their homework, they can have fun time, and sometimes we have to organize little activities for them to do. At that time, I was also really active in my high school's volunteering club. So I was volunteering on the weekends, and then I was also volunteering at my hospital. My family doctor, during one of my annual checkups, she just started talking to my mom about how she thought I'd be a great tutor since I'm already tutoring, like why not? Most of them were immigrant children who were probably struggling or their parents were really concerned. So I did that for about a year, and then I was just like getting way too stressed out. It was just getting too much, especially junior year of high school, so I took a mini break. So at my high school, there are a whole bunch of internships available and they'll try to match you with something. So I got matched with a bank. They were willing to take me in as a summer intern, but sometimes when I go to the community center, they have some activities or some nearby neighborhood is holding some sort of activity, and then they would want us to go just to, you know, show support. One time it was this really inspiring talk by this man named Eric Thomas. He has this book out. I think I got a copy of the book, and then he had this like very inspiring speech about how he went from being homeless and now he is like this great person. He also sent me a card at the end, which was super sweet. His basic thing is you want to really want it if you want to succeed. After that, they said that they were holding applications for summer intern positions. So I was like, oh, you know, why not? Just try it. And the people at my community center were super supportive and they were helping me apply. And this was actually like a really hard application because you had to submit some like 5 to 10 page paper on how you would change your community and what you would do to raise awareness to at-risk youth. And then we went through 2 rounds of interviews. I think there was also like a phone interview. During orientation, they gave us all these packets of paper, and then all our instructors come along. We had a social media expert, personal trainer. I'm really blanking. Yeah, so we had all these experts come in. So they took high school interns and college interns, and I was one of the high school interns. So we would go to all these neighborhoods, interview people for this movement that we were doing, and ask about how they were able to change their community, like what you would implement in other communities, and then try to get people engaged. It was actually pretty rough to get people engaged. I was part of the social media team. I see where we went wrong now. Looking back, like we were not engaging at all. This was probably like 2012. So I've like never used Twitter. Still, I really haven't really used Twitter. I have a Twitter, but I just like post my food, and even now I don't even know my password. So during these interviews, it got very uncomfortable one time because there was this one mayor that we interviewed, and I admit my skirt was like a little bit shorter than it should have been, but it was one of those like elastic band ones that you just like pull up. Like I look back at the interviews now and I'm like, ooh, it was short. Like I pulled it up a little too high, but my legs look great. And then during the photo, like I got very uncomfortable because this man just like beeline towards me and then put his hand on my waist. And I was like, excuse me, sir. Yeah, but it was really cool. I got to meet all these people in the community who were of high power. Like I would probably have never met the sheriff. He's still the sheriff today, which was actually pretty surprising. I had that internship for 2 summers. So then the next summer, they kind of changed it around because the format kind of wasn't working. This time, we had to do CrossFit. So instead of having like the personal trainer, I did not get along with the personal trainers. I am just not a very active person, I admit. I'm one of those like, just let me do whatever like I'm doing, just like leave me alone. I will be physically fit somehow. I'm just like not used to being like drenched and sweaty. I was basically doing the same thing, except we were doing video editing this time. We were telling our stories. I didn't get along with the college interns very well my first summer. And so the second summer came and they sort of just separated us because we were working on 2 different projects. It didn't really make sense for us to meet up all the time. So we would go on trips and that's like the only time I would see the college interns. And then they decided to discontinue the program because I'll be real, we probably didn't make that much of an impact to the community. It doesn't make sense to keep pouring money in if it's not doing anything. So junior year rolls around and I'm like, okay, maybe I should get a job again because I was helping my parents with the rent. Yeah, so I worked as an assistant for this law firm and most of the time all I really did was open up the mail and summarize everything. And they had this program where I have to scan in all the mail and then send it to all the lawyers, or if it's pretty important, they would bundle it up and then they have me going to each lawyer. I just like made photocopies, put them in files, help people organize. This was a personal injury law firm, so I saw lots of burn victims, lots of like dog bites, lots of car accidents, like kids with tire marks on their arms. It can be a little bit much. And I remember there was this one lawyer guy who sat near me. So because I was an assistant, I was sitting with the other like main assistant and it's in this big cubicle. And then on the other side of the wall, there's this lawyer. And this lawyer was always cursing up a storm. And he's like,
God, my client didn't submit these forms and stuff.
the world was ending all the time for this guy. He only started talking to me once I was looking at colleges because he's like, why are you applying to BU and not BC? Because that's where he went. And I'm like, because BC has a separate application. I don't have time for that. I had to rearrange my sleep schedule. So I would go to school, go to work, sleep for 8 hours, and then I wake up around 3 a.m. so I could do all my homework, and then I'd go to school and continue doing my homework. It was really sad. I didn't really talk to the lawyers, but there was some drama going on, so I actually got this job because the girl who was working there before me, she did not get along with the person who was like the official assistant. She just kept calling her the wrong name. And it just rubbed her the wrong way. So then they were like, can you get another assistant? I was so very afraid of the big boss lady. She was definitely like a lawyer, but she was just so scary. Every single time I went into her office, I felt like I was entering some crypt. She looks like a vampire. And she was gonna like suck my blood out. Anyway, the funny thing about this law firm was that it was right above where I used to work as the social media intern, so I knew the area. But then, of course, they moved, so then my commute to work took a little bit longer. So I live near Boston Common, so it was like pretty easy for me to get home. So then their new office was located in the financial district, and it took me an hour to get to work the first day. They were expecting it though, so it was totally fine. But it was like a really nice office. There was this one lady, I think she got fired. She was also an assistant, but just for one very specific lawyer. I guess he was like pretty high up. And she was not happy when she left. She was like, I hate you. And she was just like cursing up a storm when she was leaving down the hallway. I was like, damn, I wish I was there. There was this one other girl who was also an assistant on the days that I wasn't working. So she would just message me on Facebook and tell me about the news. And I'm like, oh, okay. I worked there for a while, and then the months leading to the summer, I was also interviewing for summer positions because I wasn't sure if they were going to keep me around. At the end of my senior year, I had 2 internship opportunities. So one was for a bank, and another one was to work at a traveling agency. And this traveling agency gave a free trip to Africa, and also they paid more. So of course I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna go with the traveling agency. There were like multiple positions that you could shadow, and then afterwards you choose. So this guy, I'm still a little salty about it. He looked over at my paper. He straight up copied whatever I had on my form, and I was like, oh, he got the one that I really wanted. Yeah, so his supervisor ended up being the alumnus from my future university. Instead, I got stuck with this guy who was my high school classmate's neighbor, and it was so creepy because I remember like the first week he goes like, oh, I know, his neighbor kid, and he asked about me. And I'm like, it was weird. So, and then he kept like projecting all these assumptions on me, like that I was so smart because I went to this like exam school and stuff. Yeah, I might be smart, but I'm not like adult smart. Like I don't know this stuff. So it was a rough summer, I'm not gonna lie, because like I would be doing all this work for like half of the day. There's nothing else to do. There were assignments due on Friday, so I would work on that, of course, but then I'd be done. And so then I ended up just going to the other interns and seeing if they needed help with their assignment. So then the guy was like, okay, yeah, we don't really have enough work for you. And then they assigned me to the revenue team because they knew that I was going to be in like business, econ, that type of stuff. So they were like, why don't you get like a taste of it? And so I worked with the revenue guy, and he was great, actually. I really enjoyed working with him, but he already had an intern, so he couldn't really like adopt me. I'd be too fast at doing my work, and it would be right because the lady from the revenue department would look over my work and it's like, yeah, it's fine. And so then like that was it, and then I would have nothing to do again. So then they put me also in another team, digital analytics or web analytics. So this is like pretty stalkery. So you could actually see how long each person stays on the website, what pages they visited, what videos they clicked on, like all these things. You just like make a report out of that. I finally had enough work to do. Personally, I really liked the revenue management team just because it was just like easy to work with them. And then my supervisor stopped being a problem. He just assumed that I was always like laughing at him or something. He was so paranoid. And then one time he was just like, let me know if you don't have enough work or something. And then I like giggled a little because I was remembering this other supervisor who was like screaming how she had too much work on her plate. And then so then at that point I'm like, screw it, I'll just tell him like what I'm actually thinking. And then he was like, oh. And then he also got a giggle out of it, and then realized that I didn't really have an attitude problem. Like my mind was just probably somewhere else, and he was just making all these assumptions about me. Also, we went on the trip to Africa. It was fine.
So because this video is getting really long, I decided to split it up.
No. Like, I think there was like the Common app, and then there was some other. Okay, it was just my year, maybe. I swear, people were like. No, it wasn't my year. No, like I think BC realized, but they like on top of the Common app, you had to do something else. I swear, no, maybe.